Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Scotty D49, and today I'm bringing you one of my first of, if you're new to the hobby series. These videos are going to be very much focused and centralized around some of the elements that new hobbyists to Warhammer 40K or any other miniature war game will experience and will question as they go through kind of their thought processes when entering into this great hobby. What I'm going to do is this video is going to be the worst. So the top 5 worst things that you can actually do when starting Warhammer 40k. So let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing up is when choosing your army, picking a horde army. Now, this army generally you'll either be Tyranids or Orcs or Genestealer Cult or Astra Militarum, or Imperial Guard as I like to call them, as the old school name, because these armies really need a lot of models. If you're going with very infantry or small, infantry level units, rather than going vehicles or big monsters, for example, with Tyranids, a lot of vehicles with Imperial Guard. So you're looking at, at least Australian, looking at $50. At least that's what it was when I last looked, for 10 guardsmen. The start collecting boxes and the army boxes for these forces are, quite limited in terms of the amount of models you actually get for them and that you benefit from. So really, you want to consider and weigh up what you're actually wanting to do in terms of that army, and be fully aware that when you jump in to something like an Orc army, that you could potentially need 100 plus standard Orc boys, with the Orc boy box being $48. There's $480 for 10 boxes of those. So being, coming into that hobby, it means you're not going to be able to get as larger games in as quickly, because you are spending a lot of money to get to the smaller points levels to start with, and that can be quite a hindrance to getting started in Warhammer 40k. Number 2 is purchasing every model kit available for your army. Now, all of us hobbyist veterans who have been in this hobby for more than 2 years will know that the pile of shame, or the pile of grey plastic, is a thing where you actually have got all these kits sitting around in your cupboard or in your hobby space that you haven't built, or you haven't primed, or you haven't painted, or you haven't based, or you haven't finished, and it just builds and builds and builds and builds. So my biggest tip to you as a new hobbyist: don't do this. Don't go out and buy everything for your army at once. Some people will do that, and that's what they enjoy to do, because they're veteran hobbyists. They know what they're doing. They're buying a full army with the intention of playing it for an event or something like that. So this isn't more for your veteran hobbyists per se, because they're able to get through stuff a lot quicker and know what they're doing when they do buy an army like this. But as a new player, stick with buying a handful of units. Build them all, paint them all, base them all, get them all done, and then start adding to it. Even me, as a veteran hobbyist of 15 years, I am still preferring to actually go back, work through my backlog, and before buying any new stuff to go with my Space Marines or my Death Watch or my Necrons even. And I've only just started my Necrons, but I've got a 2,000 point force there that I'm slowly churning through and getting to. So really, you don't want to be bogged down into only doing all the models that you own. So by picking up, say, a start collecting or a combat patrol box to start off with, and then building it all, painting it all, basing it all, getting it all done to where you're happy with it, and then adding to it, is not only going to mean that you're playing games with fully painted armies to a standard that you're happy with, giving a much more enjoyable experience to your opponent, also means that you're able to purchase more stuff, more than likely, if your parents, if you're only just starting out quite young, like I was when I was 11 or 12, having the opinion of, no, you've got to work on everything that you've got until you buy new stuff. As adults, I'm married, so my wife's got that opinion as well. My parents still do to this day, funnily enough. So it's always good to start off in a good habit of, just working with what you get to start with and then build up from there. Point number 3, building and painting a net list. Now, if you're coming into Warhammer 40k and you've seen events and you're wanting to go and play at tournaments, that's awesome. But if you're just starting out with that mentality, I highly recommend do not, and I mean do not, choose to build what's called a net list, or an army list that does well at tournaments and is played by some of the top level players of the game. The reason why that these players know what they're doing, they're often veterans of this army who have gotten 50 to 100 plus games in with the same army list. So they know exactly what they're doing every game, what every unit does, what every option's available to them when they're actually playing the game, when they face situations. If you do go out and buy a net list, what you're going to run into is that you'll get it all ready, get it all built, painted, everything, or even during your progress, and you start playing games, what you'll find is you'll lose a lot. And the reason for that is you just don't have the experience with how this army works, or you don't understand how all the pieces are meant to work together. And that's purely something as a new 40k player that only comes with time. So you've got to give yourself that ability to learn the game, to learn how the army works on that core level first, rather than going and building out a very niche or very tailored army and then going, oh, this isn't working for me, I'm not enjoying this, and then just going and selling it off. Because that's no fun for you. You've then gone and lost money because you've purchased this net list with the intent of playing events, and you've lost, and then you've had to go sell it on the secondhand market. And you know, if you haven't bought the army and your parents have bought it, you've just lost the money. So really, to start with, if you're, chipping away, buying units at a time, buying units you like the look of, that you want to play with, that you enjoy using and seeing on the battlefield, that's going to be a lot more enjoyable for you to play with. Because to be honest, that's how I played when I first got into 40k. Is I bought stuff, yeah, sure, I bought what I needed, but I bought stuff that I enjoyed and that I wanted to play with. And so whilst I did that for kind of the first couple of years of my 40k gaming, I didn't win a single game for up to 2 years. For 2 years of playing 40k, that's right, I probably took about 50 plus losses over that time during 5th edition of the game. I was still learning, I was still understanding the game, how it worked, and just enjoying myself. And I'd rather play games and lose and have fun than try and bring something to be competitive and just lose and lose consistently and wonder why I'm losing, rather than playing for the enjoyable aspect that Warhammer 40k is. Number 4, not cleaning your mold lines. This is probably something that you might think of right now and you're like, oh yeah, I just want to get in there, I want to build them, I want to paint them, I just want to, really be engrossed by the hobby as a whole. But I can tell you, as a veteran painter and as a veteran hobbyist, it's something I look back on some of my old models and I'm like, I really don't like that I didn't go and spend the time to clean up those mold lines. It really does detract from how those models look on the battlefield, because whilst yes, they are painted up, you might do the most amazing job ever, but you can never hide mold lines. Whilst yes, Games Workshop sculpts have gotten better over the years, and they're a lot better than they are today than they were when I got into the hobby. I can tell you that 100% that they're a lot better. Over time, the molds deteriorate, the mold lines form, and I can tell you some of these new kits in a couple of years, maybe 10, 15 years down the line, after production run after production run, these will form and you will have to clean them. And do it in such a way that, it's gonna look a lot better for your army when you do have them removed. I mean, all the models you see on my streams, if you do tune in, I make sure that I clean all the mold lines. I don't care if they're visible or not. I know mold lines are there. So I go around the entire miniature where I know there's mold lines and I clean it up fully head to toe, bolters, heads, backpacks, legs, everything, the entire kit. Even in pieces for the torso, where the two pieces of the marine torso come together, I still clean each one individually to make sure that no mold lines are there stopping the join, but also that they're not detracting from the look of what it looks like once it's painted. Now, there are downsides to this, that it will take more time in your hobbying to build and to be able to then paint, but I can tell you from experience, it is well worth the time spent cleaning up those mold lines and getting rid of them, so that you're able to have a really nice finished paint job on a miniature, and you can look at it and be happy as Larry with it without needing to worry about mold lines being present. And my last point number 5 for this video of the worst things to do when starting Warhammer 40k is to focus on winning over having fun. Whilst yes, I have already touched on this when talking about building a net list, if you just try and come into this game fresh, try and just win all the time, winning games, you're not going to enjoy yourself. I can tell you now. I've seen people come and go from this hobby that have just wanted to play in events and just win and win and win, and they just don't, and they consistently wonder why they're not winning, and they've been in the hobby 5-10 years and they still aren't winning. Now yes, you're not going to win every single game after 5-10 years worth of experience, unless you're someone like Nick Nartavati or Eric Lathoris, some of these high level players, both in the States, in the UK, in Australia, but what you can do is you can play good games, you can have fun games and focus on, having an enjoyable experience with your opponent. It's not always going to be about smashing your face in. You're going to rock up to a game store at some point and you're going to have a pickup game, and if you go in to win, that person's probably not going to want to play you again. Whereas if you go in with the mentality of having fun and wanting to have an enjoyable experience with this person, 9 times out of 10 they're going to want to have a game with you again. And unless you're an unsportsmanlike in terms of how you behave and your mannerisms and everything like that. So really what you've got to focus on is having fun and making it an enjoyable experience, not just for yourself but also for your opponent, because if your opponent enjoys the game, that's even better. It's a sometimes a 2, 3, 4 person game, maybe more, that you could be playing. And so to be the person that focuses on the fun and really tries to have everyone enjoy the experience of playing the game, no matter what the dice rolls are, no matter what the result at the end of the day, you're going to have a much more enjoyable experience getting into 40k than you are if you are focusing on winning. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so that is my worst 5 tips for what not to do when starting in Warhammer 40k. I hope you found these beneficial, as to give you some really good advice around what to focus on when starting out in the hobby, whether it's you're building or you're painting, or even how you interact with other people and playing the game. I do stream over on Twitch at twitch.tv ScottyD49, where you can find all the details of when I'm streamed down below in the description. If you do enjoy this video, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I really would appreciate that. Give it a like, leave a comment as well, and yeah, I'll be bringing more videos like this. And if you ever want to catch me live, look down below, and I hope to catch you in my next video.